Hello, and welcome to today's episode of Hellenic Polytheism 101, where we will be discussing one of the pillars of Hellenic Polytheism, Sophia. Sophia is wisdom, cleverness, and skill. The concept has changed and grown over time to be more applied to wisdom and the pursuit of wisdom, especially by Plato. It may be easier to recognize Sophia in the way it was applied to Socrates and Plato and Pythagoras, as part of the term philosophia, or philosophy, the love of wisdom. Now, remember how I've said in my other podcasts about the pillars of Hellenic polytheism being more of a way of life than a literal set of rules? Here's another part where that really comes through. In Greek culture, wisdom and the pursuit of it were incredibly important, so much so that it was the ancient Greeks that were considered to be the founders of philosophy. And since Greek culture and Greek religion were so intertwined with each other, we are left asking, how can we, as modern-day Hellenic polytheists, apply the concept of Sophia to our everyday lives? One thing we can be sure of is that a person doesn't need to be a world-class philosopher like Plato to be a Hellenic polytheist. What we should be aiming for is the ever-present pursuit of wisdom. We should always be trying to learn every day. It doesn't have to be a huge undertaking. Read a book, watch a documentary, read a scholarly article, listen to a podcast. If you come across something that you don't quite understand, research it. One of the best ways to pursue wisdom is to fight ignorance. There will be many times in your life when you are faced with something you don't have any experience with, something you know nothing about. Living with the pillar Sophia means taking the time to learn and battling your own ignorance. And in today's world, I know exactly how hard that can be. You can't do a Google search without their predictive algorithm doing some serious confirmation bias. Living with Sophia means taking the time in pursuit of wisdom to do it right. Now, I love learning. I'm one of those people who, if given an unlimited supply of money and an eternity, I would be a student forever. But Sophia doesn't necessarily mean learning in a classroom environment. Think about your last week. Did you come across any new information? Did you read an online article that broadened your worldview? Did you learn something new? Did you gain a deeper understanding of something that you thought you already understood? Did you discover something that mostly everyone you knew was aware of, even something as simple as the fact that if you roll up the deodorant, you can take the plastic cover off of it without having to struggle with it or yank it out by your teeth? If so, outstanding! You battled ignorance in some small way this week. Battling ignorance and pursuing wisdom also means battling the ignorance of others. If you're hearing this and listening to this, or even reading the transcript, then it means you've entered the online world in some way. That means you've also come across ignorant people who seemed perfectly gleeful to remain that way. It also means you've probably come across people who were ignorant simply because they didn't know any better, and they needed someone to point the way. Anecdotal story break time. I've got a cousin who is a senior in high school. She plays a lot of different instruments, and she's very, very good. She has practiced a lot and put some serious work into it. I've also got an uncle who's on his 4th or 5th black belt. He's put some serious effort and a couple decades worth of time into varying forms of martial arts. My sister's friend is an artist, and an incredible one. She has more followers on her Instagram and Tumblr and DeviantArt pages than I really care to count, and she's graduating college as a graphic designer with job offers from some very big names. All three of those people are outstanding in their field. Now to get to the point of why I brought them up. All three of them have told me, in some way, at some point in time, that once they reached a certain point in their skill level, the best way to get better was to start teaching. As they taught others, their own skill increased. I believe the same applies to everyone. So one of the ways you can apply Sophia to your life is to teach those who don't know any better. You will come across people who are resistant to fixing their ignorance, but more often than not, people are willing to learn. That means you can take the time to teach them. Now, Sophia also means cleverness and skill. In fact, Homer applies that term with the meaning skillful in handicraft and arts towards Athena and Hephaestus. Now, I would never suggest that we, as Hellenic polytheists, can be as skillful as the theoi in any way. We should all know why that's a bad idea, and if you don't, keep listening to this podcast. Eventually we'll get to the myths, and you'll learn why. That's a terrible, terrible idea. However, we can become skilled in our own handicrafts and arts. That is another way to practice Sophia. Now, I know not all of us have something we can reasonably point to and say, hey, that's a handicraft or an art. There are artists and musicians and weavers and seamstresses and poets among us as practitioners, to be sure. But we also have writers, we have readers, we have spellcrafters and witches, we have engineers, we have software coders, we have jewelers, we have homemakers. Sophia means cleverness and skill. While it was applied to handicraft and the arts, in today's modern world, that definition is expanded so much. So many different things are considered in art nowadays, and so many different things are considered something that you have to practice. They're a skill set that a certain type of people have that others just look at and go, wow, I'd love to do that one day. But the good news in that means that there are many, many ways you can apply the concept of Sophia to your daily life. Everyone has something that they can do with a skill or a handicraft. Everyone has the ability to pursue wisdom and to battle ignorance. Sophia means practicing your skills, utilizing your skills. Sophia means battling ignorance and taking the time to pursue that wisdom. So, to me, Sophia is one of the easiest pillars of Hellenic polytheism to bring into my everyday life. Pursuing wisdom, battling ignorance, practicing a skill, these are all things that we are doing every day. Some more than others, but we're all doing it. In one way, shape, or form, we are all doing that every day. And Sophia is as simple as that. So, thank you for listening to today's episode of Hellenic Polytheism, where we discussed the pillar Sophia. I know it's another short episode, and I'm sorry, but a lot of these things, they're something we're already doing. So, the next one should be a little longer. Today, I mostly relied on notes from one of my college courses, Intro to Philosophy and the Homework Hymns. As always, you can find the links to one source, the Homework Hymns, that is linkable this time around, on my Tumblr page at goddessdoeswitchery.tumblr.com, where I am also always free for discussions and questions. Stay tuned next time for the conversation on October 4th, the next pillar, Sophia Sune. I look forward to seeing you all then.